Hey, welcome to Sights and Stories, the podcast where a qualified historian with a passion for travel and the past will take you to the world's most iconic destinations. Each episode, we will explore not just the sights, but the stories behind them. I want to give you expert historical knowledge and practical tips to assist travel plans and along the way, make your experiences to sites much more memorable when at a destination. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to give a summary of all the episodes from Season 1 on Tokyo. This will be a highlights package of Tokyo. It'll be a special. I'm also going to give you guys an insight into future podcasts with Tokyo and tell you where I intend to visit next in Japan. So during the podcast, there'll be plenty of opportunities to ask questions. Just put them in the chat and I'll stop along the way and answer them. I'll also dedicate the last 5 to 10 minutes of the podcast to any questions you may have regarding the sites or general questions about going to Tokyo or Japan in particular. If you want to privately message me, you can write an email and send it to sightsandstoriesau@gmail.com. That email is pinned in the chat if you wish to see it. Also, if you'd like to listen to the site on Spotify and if you'd like to see the photos that I'm going to talk about, you can also view the podcast on YouTube. So there's plenty of options to see it out there. Please also remember to press the follow button. It gives me encouragement, lets me know that you're enjoying the podcast. So sit back and enjoy it. Let's give you a recap of Season 1 and go through the highlights of Tokyo. So in my first podcast, I went to a very famous entertainment hub of the city, Shibuya. I gave historical insights into the famous Scramble Crossing, the intersection surrounded by illuminated skyscrapers where around 1,000 to 3,000 people cross a giant pedestrian crossing all at once. I gave tips about where to take excellent photos of the intersection. Of course, you can walk it and get photos while you're walking across or just before you walk across. But if you want to get a bird's eye view, two options that I outlined were from Shibuya Sky and also Mark City Walkway. During this podcast, I also covered the history into the second busiest railway station in Japan. Shibuya actually services up to 3 million people a day, so I got to talking about that. And I also spoke about a very famous story concerning a dog that was linked to Shibuya Station, and it's a story of a loyal dog named Hashiko. So it was named, basically Hashiko was a very incredibly loyal dog. After his master's sudden death, he continued to go to the station for almost 10 years in the hope of seeing his master return from work. Today, if you go to the Shibuya Scramble Crossing, not far away, you'll see a statue of Hashiko, and people usually line up to get a photo next to the famous statue. But if you want to hear more about Hachiko's famous story, you need to check out my first podcast on Shibuya because it'll give you all the details about the history concerning Hashiko and his master. You can also catch out Hashiko, and I detailed this in the podcast, about having a look at the 3D images of Hashiko that pop up every hour on the digital screens of the skyscrapers that overlook the crossing today. So I sort of gave you an idea of where they are and what to look for. Lastly, I spoke about how Shibuya Sky, one of the most popular observation decks in Tokyo, how the pros and cons of going to this observation tower. You can certainly get some awesome views of the city from the top of Shibuya Sky. You can also see Mount Fuji from there on a clear day, so it is a great observation deck. So I talked about that and about booking it and about making sure that you're able to enjoy that experience. So I covered all these things in the first episode. If you go to the YouTube link that accompanies this podcast, you'll be able to see certain photos of what I've just spoken about, so the Shibuya Scramble, Hashiko, and also what it looks like at sunset to take a picture from Shibuya Sky. Sunset is arguably the best time to go to Shibuya Sky because you capture not only the sun setting on the beautiful city, maybe even possibly seeing Mount Fuji, which I've got a photo of there on the YouTube link. But also you get to see the city transform into a beautiful landscape full of lights. So Shibuya is definitely a place to visit. It's also great to visit if you want to do some shopping in Japan. Plenty of opportunities to pick up souvenirs and to go to specialist shops, like there's a Pokemon Center, there's a Disney store, there's all sorts of interesting shops. If you're a music fan, there's lots of record shops. There's also plenty to eat in the area, as you can imagine, being an entertainment hub. So that was the first one of my highlights of Tokyo in season 1 is Shibuya. So definitely check that one out. In the second episode, I visited Zojiji Temple and also Tokyo Tower. Zojoji is definitely one of the most iconic Buddhist temples in Tokyo, and it provides tourists with a very iconic photo containing the religious architecture at the site and also modern day Tokyo Tower. So you can get this really interesting photo of old Japan and modern Japan, and it's famous for doing that. So it is definitely a site to visit if you want that iconic photo. It's also a great site to visit if you want to tap into the Tokugawa shogunate, including the founder Ieyasu, because at this temple there's actually 6 out of the 15 Tokugawa shoguns who have a mausoleum there. So it's an excellent spot to tap into Edo Japanese history. Now, I provide some context to that history within the podcast. So I talk about the Tokugawa period and what it was like, and why it was such an important part of Japan's history. So if you want to learn about Japanese history from the Tokugawa period, this would be an episode that you definitely need to check out. I also discussed the impressive gate, the main gate to this site, because it's the oldest wooden structure in Tokyo, built in 1622. So it's worth checking out and taking some interesting photos of the architecture at Zojoji. So definitely have a listen about why that architecture is so special from that episode. I also discussed the history and the architecture of Tokyo Tower, which I believe is one of the best observation decks in the city. It is definitely probably the most iconic observation deck within Tokyo today. It stands at 333 meters tall, so it's not the tallest building in Tokyo, but it has a very unique lattice support system that's very similar to the Eiffel Tower. And its colours are that international orange and white colour that gives its famous appearance. Undoubtedly, if you've got a souvenir brought back from Japan from somebody, it probably, if they've gone to Tokyo, it most probably features Tokyo Tower. So although it's not the tallest tower, which I'll get onto a bit later on during this podcast, it's definitely one of the most iconic towers in Japan, if not the most iconic tower, and it has a lot of charm to it. So it's definitely a tower to check out. Within the podcast, I actually detail the 2 observation decks that are located within the Tokyo Tower. So I outline what it's like to go to both, and discuss what the site was used for. So originally it was used for a communications center, and it basically allowed Japanese people to have TVs and radio broadcasts across the city. That purpose has been replaced a little bit by Tokyo Skytree, which I'll talk a little bit later on about. But there's many towers to visit in Tokyo, but this has to be the most iconic tower. And there's also things to do on the at the bottom, at the base of the tower as well. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely check out the second episode of the season on Zozoji and also the Tokyo Tower. The third episode that I covered in the season on Tokyo, it was actually one of the most listened to and watched episodes in the season. I discussed a walking tour of the grounds of the Tokyo Imperial Palace. If you listen to the podcast and watch the YouTube video, you'll be able to get information relating to the Tokugawa shogunate again, but in a bit more different style than the previous episode. And you'll also get to hear about the Meiji Restoration period, another very important part of Japanese history, where we had the massive transformation into the modern Japan. Tokugawa period was renowned for being a part of history where Japan was closed off from the outside world, and it was basically a feudal society run by a military commander, a shogun, who had total control over his feudal lords, the daimyo. It was an era of the samurai, the professional soldiers who served their daimyo. That was a Tokugawa period, and that period can definitely be tapped into at this site. In addition to that, like I said, you can also tap into the Meiji Restoration period, because it's actually the site of the Tokyo Imperial Palace today, and there are obviously parts of the site connected to that era as well. So during this podcast, I actually gave some expert tips on how to walk from the northern part of the East Gardens through to the Nijobashi Bridge. The Nijobashi Bridge is very famous. It's got like an hourglass appearance on the water. It's iconic Edo architecture. One of the most photographed sites in Tokyo. Very beautiful. But the key is to walk from the north down to Nijobashi Bridge, because then you can take in both the Tokugawa and the Edo period. I basically discussed on this podcast the historical remains of the Edo period. So I talked about the gateways, I talked about the guardhouses, the tenshu, or the base of the castle keep tower, and also the impressive defensive turrets, or yagura. So I spoke about all of that, those sites at the location, and there's some excellent pictures, of course, that accompany the podcast, detailing those architectural aspects. But if you check out today's YouTube slideshow, you'll also see pictures of those things. So I've got the Tatsumi Yagura with its moat below the actual turret, and that is the only surviving corner turret from Tokugawa times, and you can see that there. And you can also see a picture of the tenshu, the base of the Edo Castle Keep, as well as Nijobashi, the famous hourglass bridge that you can see at the site as well. So if you want to see pictures of those, you can check out the YouTube link, like I said. I also gave some information during the podcast about the Meiji period sites, such as, like I said, the Nijobashi Bridge. But I also explained how you can see a building linked to the occupation of Japan after World War II. So not only can you tap into Tokugawa history and Meiji history, you can also tap into post-World War II history at this site. There's a very famous tower called the DN Tower 1, which served as a headquarters to the US General Douglas MacArthur after World War II. You can actually see that tower from doing a walking tour of the East Gardens through to the Nijobashi Bridge. So this site, it's often debated whether people should go to the Tokyo Imperial Palace. They're expecting to be able to walk inside a palace, which you can't do generally. There's only one time of the year that the palace is open to the public. For the rest of the year, it's not open up to the public. So generally, you're not going to be walking through the palace. If you're expecting something like Buckingham Palace, where you can have a visit through the palace, it's not going to happen at the Imperial palace. But what you can see is the excellent remains of the Tokugawa period. You can definitely walk up to where the Imperial Palace is, have a look at the bridges that serve as entranceways into the Imperial Palaces, and you can gain an appreciation of Meiji architecture. So, and all the while, I think it's also a great place to relax. Tokyo can be such a busy, hectic city, but going to the grounds of the Tokyo Imperial Palace gives you a chance to relax, walk through some beautiful Japanese gardens, and give the kids, if you've got any children with you, give them a chance to stretch their legs and to run around a little bit in a more peaceful surrounding. So I think it's an excellent place to visit. If you've got a few days in Tokyo, it's definitely worth thinking about going to. So check out this episode if it sounds like something you want to experience while you're in Japan, because there's a much more detailed account of the Tokyo Imperial Palace in episode 3, which you can access via YouTube or Spotify. So they're the first 3 episodes. I was just wondering if there's any questions out there. I haven't seen any so far. I'll keep going. Okay. So I'll go to episode 4. Okay, which is one of my favorite locations and I think a must-do in Tokyo, and it is Harajuku. Harajuku is another entertainment hub of Tokyo. It's an area where you can tap into the youth culture of Japan. And it's also an area where, believe it or not, you can also tap into traditional Japan and, go and see a classic Shinto shrine. So on this podcast, on this episode, basically you'll get a history of the site at the start of the podcast, then I go on to talk about the Togo Shrine. And the Togo Shrine was dedicated to Navy Marshal Admiral Tojo. And he was very famous military commander, very famous Japanese military commander who served in the Russo-Japanese War. So if you're interested in hearing about the Russo-Japanese War and the significance it had for Japan, it was a very significant war for them. And you want to know a little bit more about Admiral Tojo and why he's so respected to the extent that he's considered a kami or a deity that people can go and pray to today in Japan, then it would be a good podcast for you to check out. I'll just give you a little bit of info on the Russo-Japanese War. The Russo-Japanese War was so important for Japan because it was the first time in history, in modern history, where a European power, the Russians, were defeated by an Asian power, by the Japanese. It sent shockwaves through the world because it signified a change, a turning point in history. It meant a lot to Japan because they felt that to gain to be self-reliant, to be independent nation, they needed to have an advanced military that would be able to withstand the might of European powers who were colonizing all of Asia by this stage. So it was a very important war, and Admiral Tojo was instrumental in what happened during that war. So I definitely check out the podcast if you're interested in Russo-Japanese war history. So that's one place that you can access at Harajuku. So like I said, you can tap into that, traditional Japan, that Shinto, get in touch with Shinto. So if you're wanting to show the children something about, or yourself about, Japanese culture, Shinto and their religion, traditional Japanese religion Shinto, then this is a good place to go. It's so easy to access that shrine because it's in the heart of the main street, which is Takeshita Dori. So you can definitely walk down the street and you'll easily be able to find it. Also, if you walk back along Takeshita Dori, you'll be able to experience many unique foods, okay, from Marion crepes to poop ice cream and massive cotton candy delights. I have pictures of some of these things on the YouTube link. So there's lots of different shops that you can access interesting foods from. So I've got a question there. I believe that there's different fun foods in Harajuku, including huge candy floss. Yes, definitely there. The question is, what do you recommend teenagers would like to try? Oh, look, any of the interesting foods like I just mentioned, like poop ice cream or the giant candy, the huge candy floss is a winner. Also the crepes. The crepes are great in this area because you don't just have like hot savory crepes, they also have dessert crepes. So there's lots to choose from, and you don't need to speak much Japanese to be able to order a specific crepe, because all the crepes can be seen in windows, and basically they're all numbered. So all you need to do is go up to the window and say, I'd like to, I want to order number 3, and they'll know exactly what you want. And number 3 might be a strawberry and creams crepe. But whatever it is, all you need to do is remember the number, give them the number, and you'll be able to order your special crepe that you choose to eat. Getting to that question, I'd recommend any of those foods. You will be on a winner with teenagers. They will love it. But this site, Harajuku, is actually made for teenagers because, like I said, it taps into the youth culture. So it is an exciting place for young teenagers. So if you've got teenagers with you, this is definitely a place to check out. Okay? Somebody said poop ice cream sounds interesting. Yes, you actually get to eat the ice cream and you get to keep the little toilet as a souvenir if you want to, the little plastic souvenir. Don't know if you want to take it back to your home country, but maybe it's a good story to tell. And somebody just asked is there good clothes shopping there? Funny you should say that, because that's what I'm about to talk about right now. There is excellent clothes shopping there. They have very unique fashion stores, that characterize this area of Tokyo. You can get goth clothing. You can get what they call Dekare Kai clothing, which is very bright accessories and clothing. You can also get Lolita clothing. You can get punk clothing, and you can even get cosplay clothing stores here as well. So like I said, it taps into all of the youth culture. So if you think about any different culture that youth like to tap into, it is there. And you can also get designer clothes. So you get like one-off designer clothes. Some stores are actually, they advertise that celebrities have gone inside them and they've got pictures of the celebrities and the items that they've bought from the store. And you can actually pick up the same item of clothing that a celebrity's wearing. So if that's something you'd like to do, in particular, I've seen a lot of stores that have like rock stars and musicians, and they sort of show their pictures at the front of the store with what they've bought from the store, and they've got like signatures of that musician inside the store as well to prove that they've been there, and photographs. So, if you want to get that iconic piece of designer clothing, this is a place you can get it as well. But if you want to get a bargain shopping, this is also a great place to go. So if you want to get that, really expensive designer clothing, yes, tick. But if you also want to get the second-hand, fashion chain sort of bargain clothing, yes, Harajuku is it is definitely a place you can also get this. They've got stores like Ragtag, Second Street, Santa Monica, Flamingo. They're all located down a street called Cat Street, which is right near the center of Harajuku. So you can definitely get some interesting second-hand clothes and bargain shopping as well done in the area. And also, if you walk down Cat Street a little bit, you'll also be able to access the 1950s Oriental Bazaar, which is an excellent souvenir shop. It's been around since the 1950s, and it sort of looks like a shrine from outside, so it's very iconic. You'll be able to see it, recognize it pretty easily. And they've also got the famous toy shop, Kittyland. So if you're interested in buying toy souvenirs, you can go to Harajuku, and not far away there is a Kittyland located as well. So there's plenty of places for you to go while you visit Harajuku. You can get that, go to a Shinto shrine, get that interesting food, check out all the fashion, whether it's the designer clothes or whether it's the bargain shopping, the bargain seconds. You can do that. And yet there's one more reason why you should go to Harajuku, and that is because on Sundays, you can also experience the Rockabillys at Yoyogi Park. So if you're a rock fan and you want to see some Japanese culture that taps into rock music, you can watch people dancing to their rock music. They're called the Rockabillys at Yoyogi Park on Sunday afternoons. So if you want to find out what time that happens and where it's located a bit more, check out the podcast on Harajuku. So somebody's asked, I heard somewhere that there's free Wi-Fi in some streets in Japan on trains. Yes, Wi-Fi is not a problem in Japan. You'll be able to access Wi-Fi in some stores and stuff without a problem. Somebody just asked, is there good clothes shopping there? I think I've answered that one now. But if you've got any more questions in Harajuku, save them for the end because I'll give you some more time and we'll go through some more questions then. So that was another highlight of Tokyo. So we got Tokyo Tower, we got Harajuku, we got Shibuya. The next one that I went to is arguably one of the most famous religious sites in Tokyo. It's called Sensoji and the Asakusa Shrine. I explain in this podcast the history behind Sensoji, including the story involving the statue of the cannon, links to the Tokugawa shogunate again, and also damage that was done to the site during World War II. I discuss the architecture at the site, including the Kaminari Mon or Thunder Gate, and also Nakamichi Shopping Street, which I'll talk a little bit later on, the Hosomon Gate, the Konondo or Main Hall, and also the 5-storied pagoda, which exists at the site in addition to the Nightingale Gate. So I talk about all those architectural features of Sensoji. Like I said, Nakamichi Shopping Street is famous. It's basically an avenue that links up to the temple itself, to the Sensoji, and those shops, there's lots of iconic food that you can buy. There's also lots of souvenirs that you can buy. They might be a little bit tad more expensive because they are in a main tourist area, but still, sometimes you don't have time to go into the back streets and find those cheap souvenir shops. So Nakamichi Street is nice and handy. You can kind of get some souvenirs while you're looking at one of the most famous temples within Tokyo. So if you want to know about the history of the temple and its architectural features, some of those things I just mentioned there, like the Thunder Gate and the 5-story pagoda, definitely check out that podcast. The 5-story pagoda is not the largest in Japan, but it's definitely incredibly impressive. The artwork inside the main inside the main hall is beautiful. Lots of different paintings in there that I detail in my podcast. And if you're interested in beautiful gardens, there's a nice beautiful garden to the side of Sensoji that has koi fish, and it has a lovely little lovely little waterfall connected to it as well. So you can get those iconic shots, particularly in autumn where you get those red and yellow leaves coming out. So it's a chance to see a Japanese garden as well while you're there. And the other part of this site that most people forget to go and see is connected right next to Sensoji, and that is the Asakusa Shrine. You cannot, trust me, do not miss going to the shrine right next door to Sensoji. I've seen some people just walk away not even realizing that it's there, and yet Asakusa Shrine dates back to the Tokugawa, and it is original. It was not destroyed during World War II. So it is a perfectly original shrine that you can visit in Tokyo, and there's not many of them left in Tokyo because, as you might be aware, during World War II, Tokyo experienced a lot of firebombing, and a lot of the sites and the buildings from that time were destroyed, unfortunately, by how it was devastated by bombing in World War II. So the Asakusa Shrine is a wonderful way to tap into history, and it's a beautiful place to visit. It's a Shinto shrine, of course, so you'll walk through a torii gate, you'll see the kimono or the lion-headed guardian dogs on the way through to the shrine. You'll get to be able to go to a purification basin like most Shinto shrines and experience it. And it's right next door to Sensoji, so you must see it. Like I said, I've seen quite a few tourists just walk away from Sensoji and not even see Asakusa, which is just crazy. But you'll see a lot of Japanese people actually move between the two. They'll go from Sensoji to Asakusa Shrine and back again and forward again. So you do sometimes see Japanese people going to both sites at the same time. Asakusa is also a great place to experience Japanese food. Like I said before, there's Nakamichi Street, but also to the side streets of Sensoji and Nakamichi Shopping Street. There's some great places to get some food like matcha ice cream and there's just some iconic foods that you can try out. Melon pan, if you love melon pan, which is a nice bread, a nice soft bread that the Japanese have. Very tasty, very sweet but tasty. You can get some of the best melon pan in Tokyo here at Asakusa. So definitely don't just go to experience the religious site, which I think is incredible, but also pick up some souvenirs, pick up some interesting food. The other thing too is across the street there's a tourist information centre at Asakusa that has a free viewing deck, so you can get a good idea of the local surroundings. There's some interesting shopping down the main street near Sensoji as well. So and lots of food, so don't have to worry about being hungry. So this is a great place to visit. It deserves at least a half day visit while you're in Tokyo, I believe. But if you want more details about Asakusa, definitely check out Sensoji, the podcast on Sensoji and the Asakusa Shrine. I've got a question here. Which shrines do Japanese people get upset with tourists at their sacred places? With shrines, do people get upset with tourists at their sacred places? Largely no. I mean, as a tourist, the main thing to do is just to respect the customs, Don't photograph people while they're, making prayers and stuff like that, because that's an intrusion of privacy. And in Japan in general, you should not be taking pictures of people unless you have their permission. So that's the main thing to do. If you go to a shrine or a temple, just make sure that you're not taking pictures of people when they're praying, obviously to the kami, to the deities at a shrine, or to Buddha at a Buddhist temple like Sensoji. So generally, as long as people are wearing, I would say, appropriate clothing as well, you don't have to be dressed from head to toe, but just make sure you're wearing something nice, nice-ish when you go to a shrine. Don't wear anything that's too controversial, if you know what I mean, and you're fine. Look, they're okay with tourists visiting their sacred places as long as people have respect for people while they're there. So it's a very safe place to go, Asakusa, one of the most visited sites by tourists in Tokyo. So that was my 5th episode. That was, arguably to one of the most famous religious sites, as I said. And in my 6th episode, I actually went back to an entertainment hub. Well, I think there's 3 really big entertainment hubs that you should visit in Tokyo. I've already outlined Shibuya and I've outlined Harajuku. They're fairly close together. You could get them done pretty easily, in a half a day if you wanted to. You could do both of them. The third one that I covered in my highlights of Tokyo was Shinjuku. Shinjuku is a very interesting place to visit. This is a place where you can again tap into old Japan and modern Japan. Most people just link it to modern Japan, and I'll go through reasons why that is. But it is one of the most popular entertainment hubs or centers in Tokyo. It has got a little bit of a bad rap over the years. It's been accused of being a dangerous place for tourists to go. However, I'll explain in my podcast how this is not true and how there are parts, the main parts of Shinjuku are absolutely safe, even for those people that have children with them. You should definitely consider going to Shinjuku. It's just if you go further north of the main tourist centres that you might encounter a little bit of entertainment and stuff that's not conducive for families. But generally speaking, going to Shinjuku is going to be totally safe, as is most of Japan. Like, Japan is a beautiful country with low crime. So I talk about why you have nothing to fear when you go to Shinjuku and what parts of the area are totally safe to go to. So I really wanted to debunk that myth that, don't go to Shinjuku because it's dangerous, because that's absolutely not true. I also explore the history of this part of Tokyo and explain how it developed into an entertainment district that it is today. I talk about Kubukicho, okay, and which parts are safe to visit, like I mentioned just earlier. And I talk about visiting, like seeing sites like the giant Godzilla statue, that's on top of a skyscraper and, breathes and roars and, bursts out flames, from top of the skyscraper, and what an awesome sight that is, particularly at night. So I talk about the Godzilla statue. I also tap into an older Japan, because Shinjuku is just, it's largely seen as a modern Japan's place to visit, but honestly, there's something that's overlooked in Shinjuku which people should check out, and that is the Hanazono Shrine. The Hanazono Shrine is right next to the center of Shinjuku. It is a few minutes walk from the Godzilla head. It's not going to take you long to get there. I discuss its history and why it's a good place to go to, its connection to the Tokugawa, for instance. I also detail its connection to counterculture and how that took place in more modern times. And I also tell you how you can get close to a whole series of torii gates without any crowds. So you can get that iconic torii gate picture without having to worry about, getting up really early to get a photo and or beating all the crowds to get there. This is definitely a shrine that you should check out while you're in Shinjuku. I also detail the light shows that you can experience at Shinjuku. So you have the opportunity, for instance, to see a giant 3D cat on top of the Cross Shinjuku building. You also get to see, if you want to, Pac-Man and Godzilla light shows that are screened on the Tokyo Metropolitan Government building. So I detail how you can see those light shows. And I also talk a lot about the Tokyo Metropolitan Government building and why it is a place that tourists should definitely consider going to if they want to go to an observation deck in Tokyo. During the highlights of Tokyo season 1, I actually detail a few observation decks, but this one is a really great one to go to. One, because it's free. Two, because there's government guides inside the observation deck who can tell you everything about Tokyo, its landscape, its famous buildings, its famous districts, and you can see it all from the building. So the Tokyo Metropolitan Government building, I'll give you some tips as to when to go, and what you'll see up there, and why I believe it is an absolute must to go to if you get if you're spending a few days in Tokyo. I'll also talk about another architectural masterpiece that is located in Shinjuku. It's an architectural wonder. It's called the Cocoon Tower. It's the site of a modern university in Tokyo, but is one of the most interesting, iconic buildings in Tokyo. Even Lego made a little model of the Cocoon Tower. So, it's definitely one to think about. If you're checking out Shinjuku, definitely get some photos of the Cocoon Tower. To round up that episode, I also detail what it's like to visit Memory Lane and the Golden Guy, which are bar locations, Japanese bar locations. So if you want to tap into that sort of scene, I give a little bit of information regarding that. So generally, this episode on Shinjuku is more about if you want to tap into that modern Japanese entertainment, Maybe you're doing your trip on a budget, because I talk about how you can go to this area on a budget. I also talk about how you can tap into traditional and modern Japan within the same location, and also visit traditional Japanese bars. So if that's something that interests you at all, then definitely check out that podcast for some more info. Okay, episode 7, I went to one of my favorite places to experience traditional Japan, and that is the Meiji Jingu, or the Meiji Shrine. This is arguably, with Sensoji, the most important places to go to if you want to tap into traditional Japanese religion. It's a place where you can experience the largest forest as well in Tokyo itself. You can learn about Shinto from the site because it has plenty of English signage around the place and explanations at key locations to tell you how you can respect Shinto and how you can learn how to approach a shrine. So if you want to learn about how Shinto is practiced, this is a good place to go. You're not going to get that at the Asakusa Shrine or Sensoji. You're going, if you want to check out a Shinto shrine that's going to give you information on how Shinto is practiced, I would recommend the Meiji Jingu. I also give you basically a history of the site. In particular, I go through the lives of Emperor Meiji and his wife Empress Shokin, who are considered kami or gods at the site. If you want to know more about the importance of the Meiji period for Japanese people today, you've got to listen to this podcast. As I've alluded to before, Meiji Japan is a time when Japan modernized very rapidly from a feudal society under the Tokugawa into the modern Japan it is today. It was such an important part of their history that they've deified or made the major individuals, Emperor Meiji and his wife Empress Shokin, into kami or deities, gods, and they're worshipped at this site. I also give details concerning various iconography at the site, such as the use of chrysanthemums in crests that you see around places in Japan, and also the Kirimon crest. I talk about that as well and the importance of that. So I take you on a virtual walking tour through the site. So I take you from one end of the park to the other with details concerning the forest, the various torii gates that you'll get to experience, the use of a purification basin, how you can show respect at a Shinto shrine, the use of Goshuin, waka poetry at the site as well, which is special poetry that was written down by Emperor Meiji and his wife, the Honden, or the main hall, the votive rack that's used at the site. We also talk about some of the trees. There's some very significant trees located near the main hall. And I also talk about the Minami Shinmon, or the main gate, and the importance of that gate. So I talk about that. I also discuss the history of the Great Torii Gate, the tallest wooden torii in Japan, and the significance of sake and wine barrel racks that are also located at the site. So I talk about them because you'll definitely see them as you're walking through this site. If you follow my instructions on how to do it, you'll get to experience all of those things and be able to know about the history, and it'll just be more meaningful for you. So make sure you tap into that podcast if anything I've mentioned interests you there. So if you're interested in Meiji history, how Shinto is practiced, what's the best way to walk through the shrine complex, definitely watch it. It's a really wonderful, magical place within Tokyo. And again, it's a chance to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. And the great thing is, you could do this shrine as well as Harajuku because they're right next to each other. In fact, you could do the Meiji Jingu as well as Harajuku and Shibuya all within a day. You could get those three of my episodes you could do within a day in Tokyo. So, and they're all considered highlights. So, it's a great site to immerse the whole family in traditional Japanese culture. So definitely check out that episode if that's something that interests you. You want to get you want to tap into Japanese culture, definitely check that out. In episode 8, I actually went to the Tokyo Skytree. Okay, and this was the last episode of my highlights of Tokyo season. I explored the largest tower in Tokyo, okay, Tokyo Skytree. I discussed the history of its construction, and I also detail the 3 purposes it has: as a natural disaster prevention centre, a major tourist destination, and also the modern day digital broadcasting tower that it is. So in regards to disaster prevention centre, I discuss how the site drew inspiration from traditional Japanese pagodas, and also modern day characteristics such as mass dampers, the use of 3-legged bases, an inbuilt vibration system and seismic base isolators to absorb energy from earthquakes and typhoons. These are some of the reasons why the tower, despite being 634 meters tall, is one of the safest, if not the safest, location within Tokyo today. So I talk about that, and I also discuss the ins and outs of the observation decks. The interesting features such as the glass window which you can walk on and see all the sights below if you're someone who likes a bit of excitement when visiting towers. I detail the 4 elevators that you can take up to the observation decks, each with their unique light show, and I also talk about how fast that elevator goes up, and how it's one of the fastest in the world, actually. I also go through the ins and outs of how the tower functions as a digital broadcaster, and the site's attached to Tokyo Skytree Town. So at the site, you can not only visit the tower, but you can go to an aquarium, you can go to a planetarium, and you can go to numerous iconic shops. They've got a huge array of shops, and food restaurants that you can tap into. So there's a wonderful place to visit. You can definitely spend, if you want to, a full day around Tokyo Skytree. So you wouldn't spend a full day in the actual observation tower itself, but you might spend a couple of hours in that. But down below, you could definitely spend the rest of the day in all the sources of entertainment that's possible at the site. And also during Christmas time, there's some really great Christmas markets that you can attend in November and December each year. So towards the end of the podcast, I'll give you tips about when is the best time to go, and how the observation decks actually compare to the other ones that I covered in the in season 1. So we get to talk about what are the differences between Shibuya Sky and the Tokyo Metropolitan Building and Skytree and Tokyo Tower. Which one would you go if you only had a chance to see one? I kind of talk a little bit about that in the podcast as well. So there you have it. There's my highlights of Tokyo from season 1. And like I said, you can tap into any of these episodes and get heaps more detail than what I've just given you by going online to YouTube, or you can check it out in also at Spotify. So if you want to check out those past podcasts, please make sure you go onto one of those sites and you can get all the information you need. Now I'm going to give a chance for people to ask me any questions about any of the episodes I just spoke about. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask me? Just having a look now. One question I get, and I can see, is if you had a choice of only one religious site, you can only go to one religious site, which one would you go to? Sensoji or Meiji Jingu? Now, this is a tough one, but for me, I reckon I think I would go to Meiji Jingu. And the reason why I go to Meiji Jingu is, it taps into traditional Japanese religion, tick. I know Sensoji does as well because you've got Asakusa Shrine. Yes, you can get souvenirs at Sensoji and you can get iconic foods at Sensoji. That's great. But you can also get that at nearby Harajuku and you can also go to Shibuya as well if you visit Meiji Jingu. So I would probably go to Meiji Jingu. I think it's just so, walking through the forest is just so special, and particularly during autumn, if you're there in autumn, you can see the wonderful yellows and reds of the trees. So I think, particularly if it was autumn, I'd go through Meiji Jingu. But saying that, you're not going to miss out. If you go to Sensoji, you'll still get all that shopping. You'll get your iconic foods. You'll tap into Buddhism and to Shinto. And if you really want to, Tokyo Skytree is just down the road from Sensoji. Like, honestly, you could walk there if you wanted to, if you're a good walker, or you could take one train station across and you can get yourself to Tokyo Skytree. So you can actually blend in Sensoji with Tokyo Skytree. So, both sites are great, and it's a really hard choice. But I just like the forest. I think you're not going to get a forest, with Sensoji. So for me, that's probably why I would go that way. Somebody asked, do they have any festivals in Japan? Definitely, they do have festivals at each of the shrines and temples I just spoke about in this episode. So Sensoji, Asakusa Shrine, and also Meiji Jingu. They all have festivals. You need to, they're on different dates, of course, during the year. You can actually go onto the onto websites with each of these shrines or temple, and they will tell you exactly what dates they have a festival on. The only thing with festivals is expect there to be millions of people. I mean, like, not millions, but like tons of people, because Tokyo is a big city. 41 million people live in Tokyo. It is the largest city in the world. So when you have a festival, people like to go to those festivals, and so you're going to experience a wonderful part of culture in Japan, but be prepared for lots of crowds, okay? If you're somebody that doesn't like a lot of crowds, then a festival might not be for you, okay? So just be careful of that one. Where would you, I've got another question here, where would you get a Japanese traditional feel in Tokyo? Great question. The couple of things that I just mentioned today, I think Sensoji and Meiji Shrine are definitely places you can tap into traditional Japan. Now, look, Tokyo was massively destroyed in World War II, okay? A lot of it was destroyed, and the old history is largely gone. It was destroyed. But Asakusa Shrine is original, okay? And the gate at the at Meiji Jingu, the main gate that I was talking about at that site, is also original. So you can actually see some original architecture connected to an older Japan, a Tokugawa or Meiji Japan. That's what you want to do. You want to go back before World War II. You want to go back to that time in history where you either had the Tokugawa shogunate ruling Japan or Meiji government, okay, after the Tokugawa period leading up to World War II. I think they're the two most iconic periods of Japanese history that you can tap into in Tokyo. And for that reason, I would definitely go to Sensoji and Asakusa. Also at Asakusa, I forgot to mention before, but you can actually go, they've got some companies nearby which have tea ceremonies. So if you're somebody that wants to experience a traditional Japanese tea ceremony and get dressed up in a kimono, Asakusa is a great place to go. So you can actually go to Sensoji, check out Asakusa Shrine as well. So you're tapping into that Tokugawa history, okay? And then go to there's some companies just down the road virtually that have kimono wearing and also have traditional tea ceremonies. So you can tap into traditional Japanese culture. So you don't have to go to Kyoto to experience traditional Japan. A lot of people think you have to go there. If you're only going to Tokyo, you can definitely tap into traditional Japan, okay? It's not just all modern. So I would definitely check out those two sites, the Meiji Jingu and Sensoji stroke Asakusa Shrine. I think they're the best places to go to if you want to hit a highlight of Japan while feeling the traditional Japan. Also, I detailed the Imperial Gardens. I think you can, if you want a leisurely stroll, you will get to experience Tokugawa and Meiji period as well in that. A lot of people kind of, hesitate going there, but you also get to see a traditional Japanese gardens. So, if you want that quiet, relaxing, traditional feel, it might be nice to walk through the grounds of the Imperial Palace. So the East Gardens are a really nice place to visit. But if I had my choice, I would go to Sensoji and the Meiji Jingu first before I go to Imperial Grounds. If you only had a couple of days, I go to those two places first because you can get so much more done with them from the surrounding suburbs. Another question here. What time does the crowd start to form at Sensoji? Sensoji gets very busy very quickly. By 10 a.m, you've got lots of people there, okay? So you want to get there really early. It opens early in the morning, like 6 a.m. kind of thing. So if you want to get there nice and early, you can actually go to Sensoji and you can see Nakamisi Street doesn't generally open for a few hours after 6 a.m. So the shutters to the shops will be down. And you might be thinking, oh, that'll be a bit boring. But actually the shutters contain interesting artworks of Japanese artwork, paintings kind of on them. So you can actually see some interesting art walking down Nakamisi Street before the shops open. And you can get an iconic photo with the gates as well. So I would suggest getting to Sensoji before 8 o'clock. Get there before 8 o'clock and you'll be able to get some iconic photos without too much of a crowd. You'll be able to take a picture underneath the gates. The Thunder Gate in particular is very popular to get a photo with. So that's the initial gate walking before you get through to Nakamisi Street. I would definitely get there early before 8 o'clock if you want that nice photo with no one else in it. Because by 10 a.m. it is bustling full of people. Okay, and that's generally the case with all of Tokyo. The Meiji Jingu is absolutely beautiful to visit first thing in the morning. It's open early and you can walk through the gardens and just experience it on your own, with a few people. It's beautiful. So try to get to these locations, particularly the shrines and the temples. They're the only places really open early morning. Most of Japan opens about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you're an early riser, get up and go see a shrine and a temple before the shops open, and you get to experience them by yourself or with very few people, and get some iconic photos. So I'd recommend first thing in the morning, hit the go to those shrines, go to those temples, and then you go to experience the souvenirs and the iconic Japanese food and that sort of stuff. That's what I would do if you're somebody who's only got a few days in Tokyo. That is key, I reckon. And the other benefit of doing that is you can beat rush hour on the trains. Believe me, rush hour on the trains in Tokyo is quite an experience. You might not enjoy it because faces can be pressed on the glass, if you know what I mean. So you definitely want to beat that rush hour, and that starts at about 7 a.m. in the morning. So sometimes it's good to get up early and get going to some of these places, okay? So definitely make sure you get up early if you want iconic photos of Sensoji. And at 9 o'clock, the Tourist Information Centre opens across the road from Sensoji as well, and it's got a free observation deck. So that might be worth checking out. You get some nice photos of Asakusa and, also Skytree, Tokyo Skytree from there. So it's worth going there early as well. Okay. Are there any other questions out there? I had another question earlier. If you had time for only one entertainment district, would it be Shinjuku or Shibuya? Now, this is a tough one as well because, both sites offer some unique experiences. Shibuya, you've got this famous, scramble crossing. You've got the iconic skyscrapers with all the lights and the sounds and 3D hashiko coming out at you every hour. Lots of chances to go to those iconic shops like Pokemon centers and, Disney stores. Yeah, Shibuya. I think Shibuya might just have it um, because it's close to Harajuku. I think because it's so close to Harajuku, I think you could get Harajuku and Shibuya done on the same day. So I'd probably tend towards Shibuya, and you can also go up the iconic Shibuya Sky as well, the observation deck. But saying that, Shinjuku is nearly identical in terms of it's got shopping experiences, it's got your modern light shows, it's got a free observation deck. But I still think Shibuya. I think Shibuya would just beat it, I think, if I had a choice between the two entertainment hubs. Because I think with Shibuya, you can also get Harajuku done. And I think that is a massive plus. Because, particularly if you've got teenagers, you want to go to Harajuku, you want to check that out. Okay, so I definitely do that. Another question, what about a comparison regarding the observation towers is one I get asked. I have done a little bit of a comparison of that on the Tokyo Skytree podcast, but I intend on doing a more thorough podcast on all the observation towers because I haven't detailed all of them yet. So I do intend on adding a couple more down the track, and then I will run a special episode detailing the observation towers and which ones you should go visit. I can just say this. All the observation towers are worth visiting. Doesn't matter which one you go to, you're going to enjoy it, okay? So don't think, am I going to go, if I go to this one, is it going to be terrible? You're not going to have a terrible experience at any of the observation towers. I can guarantee you that. Okay, so, and it's just a bit of luck if you get to see Mount Fuji. You'll be able to see Mount Fuji from all of them, but it depends if it's a clear day. So, that's largely dependent on weather. I will detail more about observation towers in the future. Okay. I've also got a question in the past. Will there be future podcasts on Tokyo? The answer to that is yes. I finished season 1 on Tokyo. I'm going to be moving to another city, which I'll detail soon in the podcast. But there will be another series on Tokyo down the track. I do intend to go through Tokyo Disney, for instance. What is it like to go to Tokyo Disney? I will talk about the making of Harry Potter, because I know a lot of people like to go to that attraction in Tokyo. I'll also talk about Akihabara, because I know a lot of people like Electric Town, and Roppongi. We'll talk about Roppongi down the track as well. Adaiba is another one that I'd like to go to and talk about. So definitely stay tuned. There will be another season on Tokyo. That is for sure, because there are so many places to go and see. And I also want to actually do some podcasts on Kamakura and on Nikko as well, the most iconic day trips from Tokyo. So I'll talk about that down the track as well. If there's any more questions, just put them in the chat now and I'll answer them. Just remember, if you want to see pictures of the highlights from season 1, be sure to check out my YouTube video attached to the podcast. Of course, you can access all of season 1's podcasts through the links on YouTube and also Spotify. Please don't be scared to press the follow button. This will help you connect with future podcasts. It also means I know I'm doing something right and gives me encouragement to continue exploring Japan with people. So please follow me. And also remember, if you want to contact me privately, you don't feel comfortable messaging in the chat, that's all good. Just send me an email to sightsandstoriesau@gmail.com and I'll be sure to get back to you and answer those questions as best I can. I'll just check the chat again. I think I've answered all the questions that people have had out there. So I think I'll wrap things up for this podcast. Be sure to catch my next episode on Japan. Next time, as I outlined, I plan on visiting a different city in Japan. And I'm going to go to the traditional heartland a lot of people go to in Japan. I'm going to go to Kyoto. Okay, and I'm going to give some expert information on key highlights of this iconic Japanese city that contains gems from yesteryear. So we'll be talking about all of the major attractions. It'll be a highlights package just like Tokyo Season 1. the famous temples, the architectural masterpieces that are connected to the Edo and also to the Meiji periods. They'll all be covered in that season. We'll be looking at sites with stunning landscapes. That's where I'm headed. That's what I'm going to be doing in the next season, where I plan on giving you all the historical knowledge and tips concerning those sites at Kyoto, which will hopefully make your visit much more meaningful and memorable when you go to Japan. So I'll leave it at that for now. Until then, I wish you all well and safe travels to all those people abroad. Catch you later, mate.